Florida, the nation's gizzard. It's the magnificent Lassiter Show, starring the magnificent Lassiter. Featuring the nimble fingers of Michael Serio at the control board, the second most respected newsman, Don Richards, and the world's most dangerous traffic reporter, Gary McHenry. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Lassiter.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Announcer. 8.5 minutes after 3. Whoa! What's the matter with Motor Mouth in there? Good grief. Anyway, 8.5 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock. It is a Tuesday, June the 6th, 1989. Live, or as live as he possibly can be for someone who lives under a rock most of the time. In studio with me is none other than our weekend warrior, Savin, Sam McClelland. Savin, Sam, it's been a long time since we've chatted.
Yes, it is, Bob. Yes, it is. I am the weekend warrior. That's true.
What's that,
true.
Saturday from...
Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon, Saturday and Sundays. I'm the morning man on the weekend.
Oh, I thought you started one day at 8 o'clock.
We used to. Saturday we used to start at 8 o'clock. But
so another hour back from
Communist plot?
Berman, yes. No, it was a fishing plot, actually. Captain Mel Berman, they were leaving too much fish in the bay. It was going to be an overstock problem, so they gave him another hour to help people find out how to get those fish.
I see. Well, again, clearly it must have been a communist plot. I understand you have been challenging commies to call you on your show. That's what some of my people report to me. I don't get up that early.
I give out the numbers. They'll give a phone to anybody, in this country. I'm not especially proud of it, Bob, but I have
You're not proud of your show?
No. I'm not proud of this aspect of the show, but I do challenge communists to call. I even once challenged a communist to show up in front of the studio, and I would take the first swing at him, giving him a beautiful piece of publicity. Peace-loving communist comes down to studio, and angry capitalist loses control and punched him in the nose. I said, this would be on front page Pravda, but he didn't show up. They're phonies, most of them. But
the commies never call either.
None that are true communists. Every once in a while somebody tries to pretend. There's a guy named Boris that calls in from St. Pete and then hangs up on me.
Boris from St. Pete?
Boris from St. Pete, right. Then he hangs up. He never holds on too long, and he just hangs up.
Well, how is the state of the world in the view of someone from your particular ilk, if you would?
The state of the world is marvelous. It's a great time to be living right now.
Except if you live in Beijing.
Well, I have likened the incident in Beijing to our Boston massacre, to the massacre of 8 peace-loving Minutemen at the Green at Lexington.
Wait a second. Do you mean the guys in Boston only wanted a more democratic communist party, and that's why they threw the tea over?
No. Not the Boston Tea Party, the Boston massacre.
Oh, Boston
when
massacre.
The British troops opened fire on some peace-loving Americans who were gathering in the square. There were some scattered reports they were throwing rocks, but that's not true, Bob. All Americans know that's not true.
Those peace-loving citizens, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure that you would if you could, those peace-loving citizens were trying to, in essence, overthrow the government.
Yes, they were.
Well, the peace-loving citizens in Tiananmen Square were not.
They were not trying to overthrow the government. In essence, they were trying to liberalize and uncorrupt the
Why do your eyes suddenly light up when you say that word?
To liberalize?
Oh, there it goes again.
Well, I'm...
Michael's shading his... it's terrible.
Well, you see, it is a liberating effect when you lose slavery, and that's basically what communism is. It's just a 20th century form of slavery.
Sam McClelland, did I understand you to say that there are actually ways that the word liberal could be used in a good fashion?
Oh, sure. I make...
Have you changed your ways?
No, not at all. I'm very careful to draw a distinction between liberals and liberalistas, for example. It's just a category of individual that I can segment these people. I can do that. The problem with many liberals and liberalistas is that anybody who is a right-wing conservative is automatically a loony. You see, they call our intellectuals in question. No, I find that intellectuals can be conservative and intellectuals can be liberal.
Why is it?
I can read. Well, I can read. But I do think it's exciting times that we live in, and I think you're seeing now the failure of the communist system. It's an early 20th century idea that is dying before we probably get to the year 2000. We're not only going to enter a new decade, a new century, but a new millennium, and I think
isn't it amazing that you're saying that you're also seeing at the same time in another corner of the world, then, the failure of the capitalist system, apparently, in Argentina?
No, I don't see a failure there.
Food riots in the streets, people being killed, that's not a failure?
Argentina? Argentina has Argentina for the first time as El Salvador recently experienced the passage of one democratically elected leader to another democratically elected leader?
So quick, Sam.
Wasn't it Argentina?
No, Argentina just had an election. They're scheduled to change governments until next December.
Right. Although I do have to say that they selected a Peronist. But, you know, people in a democracy have a right to elect a Jimmy Carter or a Peronist, whatever they want to do.
You would equate Jimmy Carter with Peronist?
No, I'm saying that in a democracy, we don't always approve of who gets elected, but we accept the fact that that person has been elected. It's the will of the people. And
then even 10 years later, still harp on it if a guy was elected that you didn't like.
Yeah, but regularly scheduled elections were posted and held, and the winner has been declared. And I think you'll see it will take place in Argentina, a passage of power constitutionally, and as it has happened in El Salvador. And this is a major milestone. A regularly scheduled election is a big deal for the people in South America. It's a regular thing for us.
Yes, I know for years and years and years, right-wing governments down there also blocked elections. Sure. So it is very, very unusual for them. How you doing with Bushy? Bushy kind of...
President George Bush? President Bush is doing a marvelous job, I think. I've got some criticisms of his administration, but I think he's doing a marvelous job.
What criticisms do you have?
I think that he is failing to use the bully pulpit that, as Teddy Roosevelt called it, the presidency. George Bush seems to be the ultimate insider, seems to be a tag, a moniker that's been handed to him, and it's true. He does all his behind-the-scenes dealing and then comes out with a spectacular thing. He comes out...
What spectacular thing has he come out with?
Well, so far, for example, the NATO speech.
Mm-hmm.
Weeks prior...
You mean, me too!
Yes,
me too!
No, weeks prior to his going to NATO, I and many other Americans were criticizing him for saying nothing, for letting Gorbachev just lead world opinion around by the nose. Mm-hmm. And yet, George Bush had a plan all along and leapt onto the stage with a done deal. He seems to do this, and I feel that it shows his style is quite different.
What other spectacular thing has he pulled off in the last 5-6 months now?
Spectacular deals?
Yeah.
You mean the end of the Cold War? You want a topper to that? Is that it?
The end of the George Bush ended the Cold War?
Yeah, I think we won. Like he said, perestroika and glasnost.
Right?
They're Russian words.
The war was over?
Yeah, it's over. It's over, man, and we've won.
Which paper do you subscribe to?
In fact, I think I subscribe to the St. Creaturesburg Times and the Clearwater Moon and the Tampa Tribune.
I could have sworn it was Crazy Mike Gorbachev that put an end to the Cold War.
No. Crazy Mike is a communist, and I think we should be very careful.
Again, it's very similar to when you say liberal.
I mean, Crazy Mike. Here he is, a nice guy. I mean, there's no question. There's no question that he is a different kind of communist than they've ever had. In fact, he's the first Soviet leader to be a world leader, and this is a welcome change. It gets to be infectious, being liked by other countries, and maybe other Soviet leaders who follow him will say, hey, this is kind of nice, being liked by other world leaders, and they won't want to do things that will make them unliked again. So I think he's definitely a different kind of Soviet, but still, in his system, when people want national identities, the troops are, the tanks still go. They're still gassing people. They still do things like that.
You see,
they do that.
There's where I thought that maybe you and I would have a little common ground here. I was yesterday musing on my show, as I sometimes do, about good commies and bad commies.
Yeah.
And for example, I was musing that, we've got bad commies in Nicaragua that do not make their people have abortions. We apparently have good commies in Beijing who do make their people have abortions. And, George supposedly is very, very unhappy about abortion. But the bad commies in Nicaragua don't buy our military goods. The good commies in Beijing apparently do, which was a real surprise to me, by the way. And we got bad commies in Nicaragua who permit, opposition members, actually in the General Assembly. But we have good commies in China who mow down their own children in the streets. And I would assume that you, like me, I'm very, very disturbed with our beloved President George Bushy Bush for not coming down like a ton of bricks on
No,
me.
not at all. Not at all. Not at all, because it's a very complex internal situation, I think, in China.
Wait a second. A
very
butcher's
complex.
a butcher. A murderer's a murderer.
That's right. Communist butchery. It's very refreshing, Bob, to hear your comments about communist butchery.
No. There's nothing inherently wrong about communism. It's unfortunate that sometimes butchers...
Oh, wait a minute. Nothing inherently wrong with slavery, Bob? Communism is slavery. It is inherently wrong.
Sometimes capitalism can be slavery, too,
No,
Sam.
it isn't.
And when
Capitalism
communism turns to slavery, it is deplorable, just as it is
when communism turns to slavery.
Just as it is when capitalism turns to slavery. They're both deplorable. However, Sam, am I to understand that you're saying that, business is business? Hey there, Mr. Dung, another airplane maybe, or another bomb?
No.
And so therefore, when a butcher who happens to be a communist, he's not a butcher because he's a communist, when a butcher slays his people in the streets, you can somehow overlook that?
No, you cannot possibly overlook it, and we are not overlooking it. I think we are appealing to the military. I think there is a very complex warlord system that still exists in the Chinese people, that the government cannot rule hundreds of millions of people without the willing acceptance of the people. And I think you are seeing a communist boss with troubles in his own capital. And so what does he do? He goes and finds some general, or maybe he found a colonel, and said, you want to be a general, and I will make you a general if you will go in and shoot up these people, because I cannot get the division
join with me?
who are in Peking to go ahead and shoot these
So
people.
won't you join with me in denouncing unequivocally the Chinese government?
Oh, sure, I can denounce.
Well, George
I can
didn't.
denounce. Yes, he did. I can denounce.
He did not. He said he deplored the use of violence.
Well, sure.
He didn't say he deplored the fact that the government wasn't answering the students' request.
Well, let's not mention.
As a matter of fact,
denouncing, deploring.
As a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, Bushy said, hey, students, use some restraint here.
Yes.
But isn't it amazing that the young people in Nicaragua were called to go kill and rape and plunder and pillage? To drive out a guy that allows an opposition party.
No, they were not called to rape and plunder and pillage. Not at all. In fact, the average age if you're talking about the Contras, the average age of the Contras is 18 years old, and so I don't think they're raping and plundering and pillaging. I think that what you are seeing is military targets were the principal object of the strategy of the Contras.
Were these 18-year-olds the same ones who had those toys and instructions for assassination and general anarchy dropped on them?
Yeah, that's an excess of the CIA. I have to admit, the CIA has some operatives in the field that aren't they get a little out of hand.
Did George Bush ever belong to the CIA?
Oh, he used to run the CIA. That's why he's such an insider. We couldn't have possibly had a better president at this time of our history than a man who was the former ambassador to China, ambassador to the UN, and director of the CIA.
A guy that knows how to drop instructions on how to assassinate people.
Oh, come on. Don't you think that some of those Chinese students were CIA operatives? Don't you think we knew exactly what was going on in the square? How'd they come up with these? They had Xerox machines, for crying out loud, it seemed. I mean, these kids were in touch with the United States government. I'm sure of it.
So wait a second. You're telling me that the United States government, through the CIA, probably set all of this up, encouraged it, and now that they're getting butchered in the streets, the best we can do is call off a few official visits and threaten to raise their interest rates?
Bob, I might be a big backer of the CIA and willing to accuse them of their errors, but I'm not going to give them that much credit that they could launch 1 million students. That was a legitimate uprising. That was a desire for democracy that will always come. But I don't want to say that it's a done deal either. Communism has experienced these uprisings, and then they have crushed them. Now, you cannot keep the people down forever, but you could keep one generation down. The people in Czechoslovakia and in Hungary back in the 50s, they were crushed. Now you might say, well, they're enjoying some greater measures of freedom now because of perestroika and glasnost. Yes, that's true, but not that generation. They were finished. I mean, people will be free.
22 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock. That's a lovely piece of Capital Monte you have there next to your horn.
Why, thank you.
And those cubic zirconia earrings are just darling.
There's only 10 left. Call right now.
Saving Sam McClelland, my guest. Let me give out the telephone numbers. Virtually anything that might be a Sam Lassiter type issue, or if perhaps you live under a rock too. And 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 990-wfLA, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Now let me explain something. For those of you who are in support of Sam, I know that you guys speak out of both sides of your mouth, but you only need call one number. These are not stereo phone numbers. Now, there's one number for Pinellas at 461-9352. I guess that would probably be for those of you who speak out of the right. And in Hillsborough, hotbed of communism, of course. Oh, wait a second. I give out the Hillsborough number. Look them up. 27 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock. Yeah, it was full of me, too, Mike. I understand. Let's see. We will go to the telephones, and the 2 lines ringing there. Okay, there's one line available. It's in Hillsborough. That's the place with the big, tall buildings and all the communists. 990-9352. 990...
All the communists. There aren't any communists. They're too chicken to call. They are. A true communist would take an opportunity.
Are you trying to bait them, Sam?
Yeah, I know they call me. I know they listen to me, but they really don't
listen to you.
Yeah.
Well, the Pinellas County Communist Party listens to you.
Yeah. How about those? The only people.
Where does the Pinellas County Communist Party meet?
Hey, I used to know. Honest to gosh, I used to know. This guy was a member of the what's the name of it? I don't know. Some kind of the Socialist Workers Party or something like that. And he always used to volunteer his time for Democratic campaigns.
Wait, how could a communist possibly afford a radio to listen to you on?
Well, it's very simple. The state gave him one. You know.
Oh, the state gave him one.
That's right. He put in a chit, and eventually he got one.
Where does the state pass out the radio?
Well, yeah. They have this embassy
you also get FM
Washington D.C. I'm talking about their state. You know.
And
they probably
their state.
They probably have extra radio.
Well, anybody who could afford to go up to Washington and come back to get a free radio could probably, have gone over to theirs or something.
That's right. Yeah, there may be some fishing boats out in the Gulf of Mexico that look suspicious.
Whoa, you're not accusing Captain Mel now.
Hey, no. No, Captain Mel is a free fisherman.
A free
fisherman, right.
Palma Sia. Hi, Sia. You're on the air at 970 wfLA with Saving Sam.
Good afternoon. But would it be proper for me to ask Sam a question?
Well, I don't know.
Oh, my goodness.
Is this proper?
This is the same. I recognize this voice. This is the person that belittled the power of prayer on Sunday when I suggested we might pray for the parents of those children.
I prayed for a bicycle, never got the damn thing, so obviously there's something wrong with the whole theory.
No, you got your answer. No bike. No bike, Jerry.
May I ask you a question, Sam?
Yeah, right.
Sunday morning, you ridiculed one of your callers, I believe it was TJ, for suggesting that we cut off arms sales to China because of the goings-on in Tiananmen Square.
No.
And then that was Sunday morning.
No,
hey, let me finish the question.
All right, you may finish the question, but I'm issuing my right to reclaim the ground.
Then on Monday, Bushy turned around and said, hey, we're cutting off arms sales to China. Now, what I want to know from you is, how are you going to do an about-face between now and Saturday without looking like a total idiot?
You mean it's possible that TJ is actually George Bush in a dress?
Anything is conceivable, but I don't think TJ is George Bush in a dress. She's far too firm and, far too courageous to be George Bush.
No. Well, first of all, as usual, you're not listening. You've got wax in your ears because I
had it removed by a very good earman.
I do not have to do an about-face on that whatsoever.
You're doing it already.
No, sir. No, sir. I tell you what, if you have a tape of that show, all you have to do...
I'll bet you Carolyn does.
You transcribe... Oh, that coward. Let me tell you, if you have a tape of that show, you transcribe that tape and send it here, and I will eat the tape. I've done this many times, and no one has ever taken me up on it.
Sam.
What I did was I ridiculed TJ.
Sam.
I did, in fact.
You're raving again, Sam.
I did, in fact, ridicule TJ.
Sam, do you really have TMS? I've been wondering about that for a long time. It's showing it, Sam.
No, it's so...
You're getting upset, Sam. Don't get upset.
It just so happens
Sam, calm down. How are you going to do this magnificent about-face? That's what I want to know.
You are continually to interrupt. You said. I told you I was going to object to the premise of your question. You refused to allow me to object to the premise of your question.
You're running on again.
You asked me to permit you to go on. I permitted you to go on, but you, sir, do not believe in free speech.
Bob, can you get him shut up for a minute?
Wait a second. I want to come into this. Sam, did you receive a call from TJ last Sunday?
Absolutely, and right on time. During the hours of 9 to 12.
Did TJ suggest that military sales to China be suspended?
Suspended, yes.
Did you concur with that?
Yes.
She ridiculed her. Thought it was the funniest thing you'd ever heard.
How is it possible that a lucid man, a good, decent, lucid man, who probably calls Lionel's show too often, but that's the only thing I could possibly object to, how is it possible that a good, decent, lucid man heard you say otherwise?
Because he wasn't really listening. I'll tell you what it was. I did ridicule TJ, in fact, for trying to turn a tragedy such as what occurred at Tiananmen Square,
half the truth is coming out,
into a diatribe, and that was the word I used, into another diatribe against the Bush administration. That she was constantly turning our attention away from Beijing and towards Washington, which I thought was a tragic and stupid and ridiculous thing to do, and that's why I ridicule it. But at the same time, I did agree, when we concluded the call, and
Sam,
you've got your tapes,
again.
when we concluded the call, if you've got your tapes,
Sam,
when we concluded the call...
Have you checked your Haldol levels lately?
Once again, I submit my claim that this man is still not listening to this day, and that is why he does not know what I said on that day.
How do we know you're not lying right now? I mean, you're an acknowledged liar. You've already told us you'd lie. How do we know you're not lying?
Transcribe the tape. Send it to me. I will eat the tape. The cassette box, the cassette tape, the transcript, and everything else.
Are you an acknowledged liar?
Am I an acknowledged liar? No. I have said...
You wouldn't be lying about that now.
No, that is true. What I have said is that I declared war on... This is what these guys are dealing with. I declared war on Michael Dukakis, which said I would be willing to lie about him, but I didn't have to. The truth was damaging enough.
Tampa, you're on the air at 970 wfLA.
Hello, Sam?
Yes, I'm here.
They probably got those radios when I dropped them out of the back of my C-130 over Laos and Cambodia and all that. Freebies, thousands of them years ago.
Okay.
They're probably still running. But hey, isn't it ironic that our elected representatives in Washington, on both sides of the aisle, the Chinese students, Chinese dignitaries around the world, other world leaders, have praised the actions and the words of Wishy-Boo and... Jesse Helms last night on CNN agreed with what the president's actions were.
Oh, really? I missed that.
And you're in the minority, Bob,
No,
like you always are.
Well, you see, that's one of the problems with you and most of your fellow Americans, is that you assume that the majority is always right, and you're terrified to be in the minority.
No.
You're absolutely fearful of having a view that somebody else doesn't have.
The minority, the majority won this election and put Bushy-Boo in there,
So
Bobby.
what? That doesn't mean he's right.
Well, with all due respect to the caller, Bob.
Well, no, wait 1 second.
You don't need me to
One
defend
second, sir.
Okay.
I would suggest to you that 9 years ago, or was it 13 years ago, the majority of people put Jimmy Carter in the White House.
And they found out they messed up and they threw him out. They voted him out.
Sir, they may find out.
Sir,
they may find out the same thing about George Bush. So you're telling me that the majority of people voted for George Bush is hopelessly, totally, completely irrelevant.
No,
I
sir.
still say to you, sir, that the leader of the free world, or the man who claims to be the leader of the free world, who is not wholeheartedly come out in favor of the demands, the requests of those students in Beijing, is a man who I am ashamed of.
You're in the minority. I'm pretty proud of him.
He's more than the leader of the free world.
You stand right, I'm in the minority, sir, because most people are like you.
And
they
I'm
couldn't
pretty
care
proud.
less.
Well, Bob, I would like to correct you. The President of the United States of America is not just the leader of the free world. That's like saying George Bush is the titular head of the Republican Party.
What's the most important thing in life, Sam?
He is... What's
freedom?
the most...
Is freedom the most important thing in life? A man or a woman's freedom?
A man or a woman's freedom.
An inalienable right?
I would say the unalienable rights, yeah. I am an American. I have a creator-based belief system.
Well, then isn't it far more important to support those most important things in life than it is to try to keep some semblance of a business relationship going with thugs and murderers?
If you would prefer, well, I understand what you're saying, Bob, but if what you're saying that you would have preferred more inflammatory rhetoric coming out of the President of the United States of America's mouth, I would say that you are in the majority
Sam,
of that.
I know that
all of us have used more terribly violent descriptions of our feelings about this event than the President has chosen.
Sam, I appreciate that a lot of people listening to this program today listened to a program I did yesterday, and they've already heard this line, although none of them bothered to answer it, so I will address it to you. Don't you think, Sam, that George Bush should use the same kind of rhetoric against a thieving, murdering son of a bitch like Deng Xiaoping as he uses against a 15-year-old girl who tries to end a pregnancy?
I think that the President of the United States of America...
Or Jesse Jackson.
...is dealing on many levels much more than the public utterances that you hear from the White
No, wait a
House.
second, Sam. A murderer is a murderer, right?
A murderer is a murderer, yes.
And George Bush, of course, would call a teenage girl who tries to end her pregnancy a murderer.
No, he has not.
I beg your pardon, Sam.
No, he has not.
I beg your pardon, Sam. He's called abortion murder.
He has called abortion murder, yes.
So, but Deng Xiaoping is, hey, wait and see here now, because...
Well, let's not dodge the question. Is abortion murder, Bob?
Is abortion murder?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, I wonder sometimes that certain abortions.
Well, you see, Sam, not only do I have views and defend my views, but I also believe in making other people defend theirs.
I agree with that.
And George Bush is the one who has called it murder.
I agree with that.
And, he has no problem whatsoever using the most horrible rhetoric against a Willie Horton, using the most horrible rhetoric against a Michael Dukakis, a Ted Kennedy, a Jesse Jackson, a Jim Wright. But, Deng Xiaoping, our good buddy over there, let's not say anything to offend this murderer.
To defend that murderer?
No, to offend the murderer.
Okay, to offend.
We don't want to offend this guy. I mean, okay, we're going to cut off. We're going to cut off a few visits and raise some interest rates. But outside of that,
yeah, there's a lot of horrible repression that goes on around the world, and that is why the United States of America and our revolution is not over. It is still inspiring people like those Chinese students to risk their life. They knew the life that they enjoyed. They took that life to the streets and risked the violence many times.
And didn't even get lip service out of the leader of the free world.
I think they did, Bob, and I think they're getting a lot more. I think what you're seeing is, again, this is my criticism of George Bush. Too much backstage maneuvering and not enough of the bully pulpit.
Are we talking about some wishful thinking? What backstage maneuvering?
If you're saying
what backstage maneuvering?
The backstage maneuvering, I'm certain we have opened several communications with military leaders.
Well, do they call you at night and let you know what's going on, or is this wishful thinking here? You hope they have opened.
No, it's just the way the man has operated his entire life. We're not talking about a 30-year-old. We're talking about a man who's in his 60s. This man has a lifetime of behavior that we can see, and that's just the way he maneuvers. He maneuvers backstage, and I wish he would come out front more.
It's amazing he didn't maneuver backstage during the campaign. I mean, the American people thought they were getting, a rough and tumble guy here, a guy that we call a spade, a guy that we call a murdering son of a bitch in China, a murdering son of a bitch.
Well, he's...
But that's not apparently what they got, huh?
No, if you want more inflammatory rhetoric, then I think...
Well, that's what the American people wanted. They wanted a guy to put his hand on his heart.
They don't need it.
I pledge allegiance to the plan. They wanted a guy that said, good for the liberals.
Why not? I don't think
the
people in China and the leaders who are listening are immune from the voices, not just from the American people, from around the world. They have heard the kind of rhetoric that we have used, and that's because we live in an open society. They know the opinion the world has of their actions, and the President of the United States speaks more cautiously.
We're just not that kind of, but the Chinese people are, and so they would have been very, very affected, I believe, by some good harsh rhetoric, and they didn't get any.
The Chinese people right now don't need the President of the United States to egg them on. This is a self-activating revolution. This is not something that we inspired other than with our ideals. It has been inspired as much by the actions of Colonel John Parker at Lexington Green as it has been from George Bush at Lexington Avenue.
One line available, I promise to, let you guys... Whoops, another drop-off. 2 lines available, I promise to let you guys have more access to Sam. And let's see, where is it? Pinellas 46... You snort over there? You have a cold or something?
I always believe in an open access to Sam. I think it's a great notion.
Hey, so do I. 990-9352 would be the number in Hillsborough, which won't do. I get so excited having Sam.
It's those communists in Hillsborough. They stole the S.
A live person in the studio across from me. It's amazing. In Pinellas, 461-9352, 461 wfLA.
Hi, I'm Joe Garagiola. Hey,
something interesting that I swear we'll go to the phone. Something interesting you said during the break. Something I don't want to misquote you here about the President of the United States as the leader of the planet.
Boss of the planet. Boss of the planet.
Well, that's a pretty broad statement. Let me see if I can bring it down to something that we can all understand. Let us suppose that the guys on the other side of the hall on the FM were saying things like, Chairman Maseko, let us not have to read flip cards but speak freely on the air. And I kicked the door in over there and with a machine gun shot them all down. And Mr. Maseko came up and said, well, this is really deplorable. To show my displeasure, Lassiter, I'm not going to come visit you for a while, and we're going to readjust your rates at the J-Corps Credit Union. And we may even vote against you at the next programming meeting. and basically went away. I mean, wouldn't that be just absolutely cowardly?
Well, of course, it's a hypothetical, and I love dealing in hypotheticals. Because,
well, I don't know. I'm not too pleased with those people over on the FM side, a bunch of bozos.
Wait a minute. I am a man of many titles, and one of them is as ambassador to the United Stations, and that's, you're talking about my friends over there. They bring it. These guys get incredible gifts on the weekend. They get pizzas. They get
that would really be deplorable on the part of our leader, wouldn't it?
Well, sure. Well, of course.
I mean, the least he could do is say, "Pig, pig."
Well, this goes to state of mind, of the defendant, and I'm wondering if Masego would not be, complicitous in this murder. This would be murder if you were to spray machine gun fire over there. In fact, it's illegal. I think even Bush is against automatic weapons. You'd have to use a deer rifle.
Well, no, I beg your pardon. Up to 15 rounds,
right,
in a clip.
That's right.
Anything over that wouldn't be supporting. So I see you wish to duck that question too. Tampa, you're on the air at 970 wfLA.
Hello, Bob.
Hi, Tampa.
Say, I think I have to agree with you on the statement you made there that communism was basically good because this country...
Wait, sir. I said nothing of the kind. I said there's nothing inherently wrong with communism.
Okay, that there's nothing inherently wrong because this country didn't become great until it adopted several of the planks of the Communist Manifesto.
Which ones are those, sir?
Well, the heavy graduated or progressive income tax, that was one of them.
Oh, really?
And the other one was the centralization of all credit by means of a national bank.
Is this Stan the money man calling? I'm not sure.
No.
I don't need the Federal Reserve System. I don't know.
Stan the money man is much older. This guy just has old ideas.
It's sprouting. Okay.
No, and another one is abolition of all the rights of inheritance. They tax the people here so much on their inheritance that you can't pass something.
Do you have more than $600,000?
Pardon?
Do you have more than $600,000?
Well, I don't think it's any of your business.
Well, if you don't, then what the hell are you worried about?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What am I worried about?
As much as it kills me, I definitely agree with you on the inheritance tax. I find it to be absolutely deplorable.
I do too. It makes a lot of people. It bankrupts a lot of people that can't afford to carry on what their fathers and grandfathers and people before them. That was a little tongue in cheek. Of course, I'm not for communism by any shape or any stretch of the imagination.
Now you're pulling my leg, right?
Yeah, and now I'm pulling your leg. But I enjoy your program today.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, bye-bye.
See what a little dose of Sam can help.
2 lines. 2 lines available both in Hillsborough, 990-9352. Of course, in particular, if you're a communist, Sam has been challenging communists to call, and they just won't. I'm trying to help him out today.
Please call, comrade, call.
St. Petersburg, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Yeah, this is for Bob. I was reading a book by a gentleman, or actually an abridged collection of articles that were written for the Dearborn Independent from 1920 to 1922.
Yeah.
Written by your hero, Henry Ford Sr.
Uh-huh.
And it was called The International Jew, the World's Foremost Problem. Are you familiar with that at all, Bob?
Yes, I am. And by the way, Henry Ford is not my hero, but many of the things that Henry Ford did I find very admirable. Henry Ford was a very bizarre man, my friend, and he did write those horrible articles and caused other horrible articles to be written. At the same time, Henry Ford also did very, very marvelous and charitable and wonderful things for Jews individually. Henry Ford was a dichotomy, a paradox, a jerk, and also a brilliant man with some ideas that we would do well to separate from some of the other crap that came from him and pay attention to.
Okay, because there was one article in there about Zionism and communism, how Henry Ford...
He also was very unfavorable toward black people in much of his writings and thinkings and teachings.
Well, I'm just curious if anybody out there has read this book and what their comments are on it. I found it to be very strange.
For a number of years, when you bought a Ford automobile, they took down your name and address, and they sent you this publication that Henry Ford put out that was vehemently anti-Semitic and prejudiced and bigoted and so forth and so on for a number of years.
Right. And just that, there was one interesting article in there about Zionism and communism, how Henry Ford claimed that it was the Zionists that were actually the people that were involved in cultivating communism and Marxism in this world. And I wonder if Sam has any comments on that. And that's about it. I'll take my answer on the air. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, well, Henry Ford was not Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way, and neither...
No, nor was Mark, the guy that showed up at Temple every week either.
I don't understand what the point is of the caller on this. I'm trying to resurrect, the people.
Well, the point of the caller is that he thought that Henry Ford was my hero, and while I frequently say things like, when Henry Ford wanted to get richer, he lowered his prices, increased his quality, and gave his workers more money, and he was hoping to shoot me down on that, thinking I didn't know about Henry Ford's long, long history and tradition of anti-Semitism. Clearwater, you're on the air at 970. Whoops, let's not do that. Yes, I appreciate, speaking of people who get a little bit... Don Richards standing by at the wfLA news desk. Some heavy... Would you give him a toot there, please?
A toot, yeah.
You're really here.
Take two toots and call me in the morning.
Sam, my guest in studio.
I am a talk show
this
guest.
afternoon. Clearwater, you're on the air at 970 wfLA.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. From the sparkling...
Before we get started here, Bob,
wait a second. Wait a second. Michael and I appreciate you saying good afternoon to us, but don't forget Sam.
I was referring to Sam and Michael.
Oh, I see.
Well, good afternoon to you, sir.
Bob, just the same. I have enjoyed disagreeing with your point of view for many afternoons, and I'm glad I have a chance to speak with you. A couple points I'd like to bring up.
Okay.
First of all, when we discuss George Bush, be it a Republican, be it a Democrat, or even one of these goofball commies that call your show, what I find is that regardless if you agree with his policies, George Bush is our president.
Yeah, actually, I
The
like
President of the United
personally.
States, and to me, that means he is entitled to a certain degree of respect. Bushy-wushy is not respectful.
Actually, bushy-wushy, I've never used like bushy-wushy. I just call it bushy, but bushy-wushy is neat. Write that one down, Michael.
I'm sorry, Bob, I couldn't hear you. I was talking.
Well, that's okay. I was telling Michael to write down bushy-wushy. I've never used that. I like that.
Well, what's the one that you use?
Bushy. Just plain bushy.
Okay.
But bushy-wushy.
Can you, one point at a time, can you at least, maybe not disagree with me, but see where I'm coming from, that our president, regardless if you disagree with him or agree with him, still deserves a certain amount of respect?
Well, let me, you ask a question, and I will give you an honest answer.
Okay.
And please do not be offended, because we're not necessarily talking about you.
Okay.
Because you have raised a specific issue, okay?
Okay.
I am in show business, sir. I run a talk show in a medium known as broadcasting.
Right.
Most of the people who listen to this program, or I take that back, most of the people who respond in a program like this, and it be it, a liberal program, and I'm sure Sam will agree when he hears what I have to say, a conservative program, frankly are not capable of dealing with what we're talking about, because most people don't read the newspaper. They don't sit around and thinking about the SNL crisis and so forth and so on. Yet I've got to get good, stimulating calls on my phones. And so therefore, if it boils down to somebody calling me up and screaming that I am disrespectful to the president by calling him bushy, then I will do so.
Okay. I can understand that.
It's to keep the show going. I personally like George Bush. I don't know why. I disagree with him on almost every issue, but I think that he's probably a nice guy. I feel the same way about George Bush, by the way, that most people felt about Ronald Reagan. I disagree with him, but I like him. It's showbiz, nothing more, nothing less.
Great. To be very honest with you, I called once on your show, and you got furious because I stated just that. So I wasn't even going to approach that angle.
Well, while I may call Bushy for showbiz purposes, I do not disagree with him for showbiz purposes.
Okay.
That comes from my heart.
Fair enough. And I appreciate an honest answer.
All right.
But let's get into this a little more detail.
Okay.
Okay. You do not agree with President Bush's handling of the crisis in China.
No, I don't. I'm very, very disappointed.
Okay. With a man who was our ambassador to China, who ran the CIA, also who ran the GOP during probably its most time of crisis, if you will. Who better to know how to handle this situation but a man with the experience and the integrity and the knowledge of the country and the inner workings of the country that you and I know nothing about?
Let me give you, an honest answer to an honest question. I do a talk show. I'm just a normal guy who puts his pants on the same way you do. And by the way, I did miss the leg this morning and damn near fell down. Hopping there on one foot, trying to get my balance back.
Well, you hang in there.
when I criticize George Bush, I can do so from a very idealistic and sometimes even a naive point of view. However, I think I raise legitimate questions, and it then behooves those of you who would support George Bush, President Bush, if you will, to defend him. It's discourse. It's conversation. Bush may be right. He may be wrong. I may be right. I may be wrong, or the truth may lie somewhere in between, which is the most likely. And to simply accept what he says is wrong. I am a naive man. I know that. But I try to live a life of principle. I hope that answers it.
I think there's a Billy Joel song in there somewhere.
Probably is.
Bob Lassiter, News Radio 970, wfLA.
All-righty do. Wishy, that's really neat. 13 minutes after the hour of 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock, my God.
Wait a minute, let me get this clock set. This clock is behind.
Just like the old days, you know? I mean, you get yourself into a habit, and even, nonetheless, 13 minutes after the hour, 4 o'clock. Welcome back, hour number 2. It is a Tuesday, June the 6th, 1989. Sam is in studio, hasn't tried to sell anybody any cubic zirconias or even any Capo di Monte.
Completely cleared out of that stuff, Bob, in the last hour.
You're clean now. Okay, Sam, of course, being Sam McClelland, who is our very own warrior of the weekends from 9 until noon, Saturday and Sundays, sitting here in this... You do sit in my chair, don't you?
Yes, I sit in the chair.
You realize this chair does not belong to the radio station.
I know it doesn't belong to the radio station.
My personal chair. And you sit in it.
I was here when they gave CPR to the chair, when Sleepwalk came down and gave it a new life, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm just amazed that you sit in the chair. I'm not even going to ask if you sniff the seat. But nonetheless, Sam,
it's typical, Bob. A disgusting.
Oh, you have sniffed the seat.
It's drive time. There are people picking up their children in their cars and they're listening to this.
Oh, it's better they listen to this than some of the stuff you put out on the weekends. I mean, unbelievable.
This clock, a backwards clock. Is this something you're telling me?
You're going to mess up the guys in the morning.
I'm trying to.
They know that clock is 1 minute 13.7 seconds off, and so everything they do is okay. When the morning show falls apart tomorrow, don't come crying to me.
That's tough. Good morning.
Let's see. One line open in Hillsborough, but it just started to blink, so we won't even give you the numbers. North Tampa, you're on the air at 970 wfLA.
Afternoon.
Afternoon, North.
How do you like North?
Yeah, North Tampa.
Oh, okay. How do you like Mushy Bushy?
Bushy Wishy, I think, is a little better. But Mushy Bushy's not,
Mushy Bushy's kind of a double entendre, though.
Well, whatever.
Sam, I've only heard your show once before. I think you were talking about model rockets.
Yes.
Maybe that's the kind of subject you have.
I am the Texas State Altitude Champion of 1970.
Right, I heard you say that.
Yeah.
We must be about the same age. Did you ever launch one from underwater?
From underwater?
Yeah, like Polaris.
Could we talk you into launching one from underwater?
Yeah, you put the little jet X-Wick in there and drip paraffin in. It works beautifully.
Could I do the countdown when you launch it from underwater?
Yes.
1,999.
What prompted me to call was an involuntary guffaw when I heard you comparing, Sam, this Beijing thing with the Boston Massacre. I mean, that was just a real joke. How many people were killed in the Boston Massacre?
Well, figures were inflated, and we agree to that. Most Americans will say that we did kind of, inflate the figures there. But the circumstances are much the same. The Americans that advanced upon the public building were peaceful and were not really threatening. The British soldiers that were there.
Wait a minute. Let me.
And I might point out that the British government, the British colonial governor, did reprimand and reassign the British lieutenant who ordered the troops to fire. But the point was well made that British troops were willing to kill Americans or
in self-defense. In self-defense.
No, sir.
And
no,
let
sir.
me point out that
as I point out to you, sir, as I say once again, the Americans who died that day in Boston presented no threat or bodily harm to the British soldiers.
Well, not according to the Redcoats, and they only killed 5 of them.
Oh, well, you can read the losers' account of the war. I prefer the winners' account of the war.
And not only that, but why was there a demonstration in Boston that day? It was because
the Americans, the colonists, they wanted to separate from Britain for economic reasons. I mean, here you had a class of elite landowners who did it for economic reasons. All this idealistic freedom, democracy crap, this all created later.
Here we go. Left-wing. Oh, yeah, it's an agrarian reform program. Give me a break with these left-wingers. I'm telling you, you're even upset with the American Revolution.
Well, no, I'm damn glad about it, but I'm getting sick and tired of hearing all this idealistic garbage about it. The fact is, it was for economic reasons.
Gentlemen, permit me to jump in here. I know that for some of us, discussions of history are fascinating, but what I try to do, since, you see, I have a competitor on another station where people call up and remember history, and as a general rule of thumb, we try to allow him to have that franchise. Off we go now to Sarasota. Hi, Sarah, you're on the air. Oh, pity poo, Sarasota couldn't hold on with us. So I'll give out the Hillsborough numbers, 990-9352. And off it is now to Tampa. Tampa, you're on the air at 970 wfLA.
Yes, good afternoon, Bob and Sam. How you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Yes, Sam.
We will not be playing the Colonel Bogey March here today. That is
and one of these days it'll say Seattle. I just know in my heart.
Sam, this is a hippie, Sam.
Oh, my goodness.
Song and all, yes.
You know, there is going to be an ordinance someday banning all hippies from Pinellas and Hillsborough County. I think they'll still be in Sarasota because they won't be able to tell the difference between you and the other clowns down there at Ringling Museum. You know, those bell-bottom pants, you know, and the strange makeup on the face, you know, flowers in their hair.
Flowers in their hair.
Right.
Sam, how can you say that under the Bush administration that things have been going great when Dan Quayle calls Gorbachev a drugstore cowboy and they want to keep reviving the Cold War, basically?
It was all a part of the idea to smoke him out at NATO, really. Marlon Fitzwater today says he regrets making that statement. I don't think he regrets making that statement. I think it was all a plan. I'll be the one to make it. He's not a real public official. Remember this. He is just the mouthpiece. So,
and what about the minimum wage, Sam? Why won't the Bush administration give people a chance to earn a living, decent wage, Sam, when so many people...
Oh, give me a break about this. Yeah. What do you want to tell me here? That the Bush administration doesn't think you're worth 30 cents an hour?
Hey,
is that it? Is that the refrain? Is that
no,
Is that the international?
No, Sam. What they said is not that you're not worth 30 cents an hour. They said that the entire economy would collapse, that the Reagan miracle would come to a halt. And, Sam, what I can't understand is then they tell me nobody's getting a minimum wage anyway. Mm-hmm. And everybody else, the other 99.9% of the people who will get more than a 30-cent an hour increase, and it's not going to cause the economy to collapse. That's why some people are a little bit leery.
Yeah. Personally, I think it's rather silly to even play around with the minimum wage. I mean,
well, it's not silly if you're earning
cares?
it.
Well, you want a better job, go ahead and get one. But with the minimum wage problem, if Bush had said, I want $5 an hour, they would have said, I want $5.30 an hour, and you don't think he's worth 30 cents. If Bush said $6 an hour, they say $6.30 an hour. I mean, it's one-upmanship from the Democrats.
Well, speaking of one-upsmanship and minimum, I have to break at this particular point for our own beloved bronzed washboard of a traffic reporter. However, when I return, I'd like to pursue that with you. Hey, if it isn't the whole $3.35 an hour himself.
Little touch of sarcasm today, huh, Bob?
A little touch of a sarcasm?
Getting upstaged by my buddy Sam, so you have to take it out on the traffic reporter?
Gary is such a professional. He's a thorough professional.
That is right. And I have a little Reagan flag on my lapel.
Gary, you seem a little bit testy today. What's the matter? A fox fetching last night, a little on the slim side?
I had to take the night off. You know, I was so worn out from Sonota Sasso over the weekend. But it's the weather. You know, Bob.
What did they have a 6K run in Sonota Sasso over the weekend?
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Gary, as a professional pilot up there, how many fender benders have you seen of us supposedly professional motorists? But I've never heard of a propeller bender where you were following too closely, say the other.
As the kingdom come, that will be done on earth as it is in heaven. One nation, under God, liberty, justice for all.
As most people know, of course, that's the way we begin our Friday program. If you'd like to use the Lord's Pledge on your show, It should be arranged.
I have freedom to use that. I have occasionally delved into the, into the bucket over there.
Oh, really? Keep your hands out of my bucket.
No, now Michael Serial can testify to this. There are times when even the great Lassiter goes on vacation.
Magnificent
Oh,
Lassiter.
Magnificent Lassiter, excuse me. And you go on vacation, and sometimes I get selected to be the pigeon of the week. I come in and have to deal with your audience. It takes a long time to brush away the loonies. The communists call your show. They don't call my show. And I will come in and I will try to give them a dose of Lassiter, something to ease the withdrawal symptoms, and I find some favorite pieces of shtick.
Thank God I go away on my vacations and don't stay at home. You will, of course, be taking a $12 a week decrease to help the national economy along this year.
No, not at all. No, not at all. I pay my taxes, which is sufficient.
I think. Are you suggesting that people in the lower income brackets don't pay taxes?
People in the lower income pay an astounding amount of taxes. In fact, the lower you get in the consumption tax area. They pay a significant chunk of their income it goes towards paying.
But you don't want to give them a 30-cent an hour increase.
Incidentally, children are great taxpayers in this country. I'd like to pass that along. Children are extraordinary taxpayers. They buy Coca-Cola, jeans, movie tickets. I mean, they're great taxpayers.
Well, of course, they're not really. The children don't really pay taxes since they don't really bring income in. The taxes are still being paid by their parents.
Well, it's a trickle-down system.
I mean, I can see some little old lady sitting at home now, knitting, sipping on her elderberry wine in a condo overlooking the Gulf of Mexico. Well, she thinks it's the Gulf of Mexico. It's probably Lake Okeechobee.
Yeah.
And, from one of the rip-off real estate people. But that's nonetheless, she's sitting there and saying, "That's right, poor children paying too much taxes. That's Sam. I really like that Sam. He's a good man."
Here you go, ridiculing the backbone of this country.
No, I'm not ridiculing the backbone of this country. What I'm doing is I'm just pointing out how you use something that you know not to be true in order to aid and foster your cause.
Oh, now, listen, talk about things that I know to be true and things that you don't know about. Last year, all the liberals were complaining that all the jobs created by Reagan were these hamburger flipper jobs. And now this year, they're saying none of them are hamburger flippers. Which is it, Bob?
Now, wait a second, Sam. The Labor Department was the organization that said most of the jobs created during the last 8 years were relatively low-paying jobs.
Not true.
It was the Reagan administration that said, no, that's not true, and besides, we don't have anybody earning minimum wage. Only a few people, basically some kids cutting grass and helping out at home.
The dispute was over the jobs that were created. The new jobs were created. The vast majority of those jobs were paying something like $25,000 or more.
Really?
Yeah, that's right. They were white-collar workers. In fact,
then how is it that in Pinellas and Hillsborough counties, where, of course, a hotbed of republicanism, one would think we would have been favored with all of those high-paying jobs, the average wage in this area is a little closer to $14,000.
Well, to use a peninsula that is a tourist economy and housing as its chief way of doing business as an example of the country?
Where were all those $25,000 jobs?
Those jobs are basically in clerical jobs, administrative jobs.
Clerical jobs?
Yeah, you better believe it. The new jobs. Of the new jobs.
New jobs. Oh, I see. Still, the old people are getting $12,000 a year for doing the same thing.
But the minimum wage
they should all quit and be rehired.
It's just a shibboleth for the Democrats. They've often tried to claim that they're the only ones who care about the poor, downtrodden worker, and so they're advocating this minimum wage. It didn't matter if George Bush
said an hour phone answer.
Right.
They're $25,000 a year phone answer.
The point should have been established that in the first 6 months of the Bush administration, both the President and the Congress wanted to dramatically increase the minimum wage, and they should have compromised. I blame both Bush and the Democrats for permitting themselves to come into this conflict once again playing one of them.
Increase the minimum wage?
Sure. What did it used to be, and what do they want it to be now? What was it? It used to be something like $3.55, and now they want it to be.
No, it's
Bush says $4.35. $3.35, and Bush says.
Bush says $4.25.
$4.25.
Congress and Senate say $4.55.
Right, 30 cents
over a period of in excess of 3 years.
Well, you got to wait for Christmas, too, Bob. You got to wait for things. Wait, you look at me like funny. Yeah, Christmas comes once a year. Minimum wage things, it's been a decade since they had an increase.
Tom Richards. Thank you, great wise one there.
Thank you, what?
That's easy for me to say, huh?
I thought you were going to say something that was mildly obscene there, but okay.
Well, not really. Just 36 minutes after the... No, what happened? He didn't really say that happens on my show, did he? No. Oh, my God. Get the tape. 4:37 now the time. Another minute has actually ticked past. One line available. It's in Hillsborough, 990-935299. Do you have this much fun on your show, McClelland?
I have more calls, but...
You have more calls? Oh, really? They bring in more lines? Yeah.
No,
I've heard these great impromptu 3-hour and 20-minute monologues on your gig,
I had to do some monologues. You better believe it.
Yeah, you have a lot of young callers on there. People calling you Daddy. St. Petersburg, Saints, you're on the air at 970 wfLA. Hello, Saint.
Hello.
Hi there.
I heard one of your callers mention Henry Ford and his anti-Semitic writings. I'd just like to set the record straight. Mr. Ford repudiated every anti-Semitic article he had ever published.
And ever written, too.
That's right. Stating, well, he didn't do any writing.
I beg your pardon.
Well, he came to it. He stated in a newspaper
Did you know Henry well?
Okay, he stated in a newspaper ad that he took that he was misled by a man who actually wrote the article. I can't read more about it. The ad was taken in the Dearborn.
Did you say you can't remember too much more about it?
Well, you refresh my memory.
Okay. Was that about it?
Yes, I just want to set the record.
990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in the other place. Zephyr Hills. Hi, Zeph. You're on the air at 970 wfLA.
Good afternoon, Bob.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Sam.
Yes, hello.
Hey.
How is the drinking water out there in Zephyr Hills today?
Pretty good. It's a little wet.
A little wet?
Yeah, it's been raining all day. Hey, Sam, I got a question for you.
Fire away.
Okay. If a person was to sell nuclear weapons technology to a foreign country, would they be considered a traitor?
What? Wait a minute. Is this one of those algebra questions? If two trains left Detroit at the same time, you know, what is
Answer the question. It's a straightforward question. Now, come on. If American citizens...
Let's not talk hypotheticals. What is the real-life situation you're trying to sneak up on me on and say, well,
it is a real-life situation.
Then don't you agree that we should condemn this activity? Come on. Let's get to the real-life situation.
You're saying we should condemn such activity, right?
Let's get to the real... What is the real-life situation you want me to contrast this hypothetical with?
Hey, now, come on, Sam. I asked you a real-life question. If a U.S. citizen sold nuclear weapon technology to a foreign country, would he be a traitor?
What foreign country are you talking about?
Any foreign country.
No, what? That is not true. That is not true. Any foreign country is not the same.
Okay, anybody who wasn't a member of NATO.
In fact, we have countries that we are obligated by alliances and treaties to share certain systems.
Right, okay. Anybody who is not...
And we get something back. I might point out that our great friends to the north, Canada, have got the best radar system in the world.
Granted.
Gentlemen,
All right,
wait, one second here. I must break in. This is a fascinating conversation. Zephyr, if you will allow me to put you on hold.
Yeah?
I would love to see what the outcome of this question is, but, you know, it's McHenry time. So can I put you on hold?
Oh, yeah, great. Thanks.
All right, Zephyr goes on hold. Sam, would you kindly go on hold?
Yes, I'm on hold.
Sam is on hold.
Nuclear weapons.
But a man who has not been held for a long time is coming our way.
Dear Mr. Maseko.
What the hell are you talking about?
9 seconds late, buddy.
We're not with a delay.
4:40:09.
Oh. You're the guy that was 2 minutes late yesterday in the 4:40 break?
That's not my fault.
Tell the bozo on the other side of the hall to clamp it up, you know?
You go over there and mow him down with machine guns like you were going to do earlier.
Yes, I tell you, if he holds you for 2 minutes on me again when I blow away a great call, damn straight that's what I'm going to do.
Oh, boy.
Oh, let me check the log here, see if anybody wants to...
Oh, don't bother. You never have before.
Hey, this one's not... you see, there's no sponsorship here, Sam.
Absolutely none. That's because some people don't understand that Gary McHenry is the most listened to traffic reporter in the sky in Tampa Bay.
Only because he appears in the middle of my show.
He's the only one.
I mean, have you ever heard anybody say, boy, I tell you, that McHenry, do you know what he said yesterday in his traffic report? No.
Oh,
People
yes,
all the
they
time
do.
say, boy, that Lassiter, you know what he said yesterday?
Oh, I've never heard that.
All right. That's only because you don't know anybody.
And the reason I don't have sponsors for every single report is because you probably miss billboarding so many of them that they probably just throw up their hands and say, well, forget it.
Shut up and let me introduce you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is with a little bit of pride, not much, I present to you the unsponsored traffic report.
Thank you ever so much, my friend Bob. Traffic right now...
All they care about over there is that you have a home.
I thought they cared that I make my payments on time.
Well, that they care about, too.
Okay.
But they figured, you know, since you're always mouthing off about going to war and that kind of stuff, you'd probably make your payments on time as long as it was peace. And even you, Sam, any worthy cause. If you wanted... Sam, would you possibly like to put on an addition to your house? Do you know that,
I would.
Do you realize that the good folks at Town & Country Mortgage and Investment Corporation will finance that up to 100%? Not 80, not 70, not 60% like a lot of other places, but 100%. construction loan? You want to build a new house?
I need to
help
do
you with
something.
that. As a matter of fact, Sam, just about anything that has to do with a mortgage, Town and Country Mortgage and Investment Corporation can help you out with. And I'll bet you didn't know that, did you?
I didn't. Well, I have heard it mentioned on somebody's show here about Town and Country Mortgage.
They're a licensed mortgage broker, Sam.
That's important, Bob.
Located at 14502 North Dale, Mabry. It is to the state.
It's important to all of us. I mean, we watch over these people. They watch them very carefully in this state.
Telephone number is 264-2648. 264-2648. Zephyr Hills, you still there?
Yeah.
They probably even finance you.
Yeah, so we're selling nuclear weapons to who?
To any foreign country.
Well,
a
which
U.S.
one?
citizen.
Which one?
Who is non...
You said any foreign country.
Any foreign country.
Any foreign...
Sam,
you know?
Hold on, Sam. Now,
yeah,
hold on.
Okay.
Sam.
All right, I'll bite. No, you could give atom bombs to Germany,
for a long
and it would
time,
not be.
Sam.
Yes,
You've been
right.
biting
No,
big
who is
ones.
not a member of NATO.
It doesn't matter. I mean, yes, I'll add this to you. So let's get to the real point. I'll bite. I'll say no.
Okay.
Right.
Then why is our government
Who's
selling nuclear weapon technology to France?
Why are we selling nuclear weapons technology to France? Okay, which nuclear weapon are you talking about?
Nuclear weapons is nuclear weapons.
No.
Once you know how to make one,
No. Nuclear
you know how to make
weapons
the rest.
are not nuclear weapons. It takes an atom bomb to set off a hydrogen bomb.
Right.
Give me a break, pal. I mean, I know the difference.
Well, once you got one, you got the other one.
You, sir, are somebody who forgets history. The only country that ever used a nuclear weapon against a foreign power was the United States of America.
Right. I have not forgotten
that.
that.
And it was a darn good thing, too.
Oh, no, I do not disagree with that at all. Okay? Don't get me wrong.
Because even Harry Truman said that he did that out of Christian love.
Boy,
every time you say something reasonable,
wait a minute.
Every time you say something that some people could agree with, you come in with a zinger like that.
Really? God said something about thou shalt not kill?
No. We're talking about St. Augustine and the only reason why you can go to war. You have to go to war out of love for the enemy.
Okay.
Put him out of his misery.
Let me ask, exporter of military arms in the world.
There is a difference between saying we are an exporter
The
of the
United
problem.
States was that.
What we are doing is paying for our own defenses weapons by selling cotton. Would be paying $200 million per weapon.
Sam, I can think of a reason why we shouldn't do it.
Why shouldn't we do it?
So that they don't turn around and use them against us like they did in Iran.
Thank you, Bob.
It's a nasty world. It's a nasty world, Bob. You need to be defended. I would love to live in your world, Bob, a world where everybody loved one another, but it's not true. My world is a very real world, and it's got Gaddafi in it.
Man, right after Arafat.
Hold on, guys. Hold on.
Show, I go back home. I put on my jeans. I put on my dashiki. We'll light up a pipe with some funny stuff in it. Listen to Simical Records. Come on over, man. Live in my world.
I'd love to. Corona Grande.
Mary passes out potato chips when we're young.
Smoking pipes and things like that, Bob. You know that I'm at a disadvantage. I am not here with my Villa de Cuba Corona Grande today from the Villa Zone. Born in Cuba, but made in the USA. These are the greatest cigars in the world, and I don't have one today. Imagine
we ain't worried about cigars today, Sam. Sam.
Yes.
We ain't worried about cigars today.
Oh, are you still in the...
Oh, yeah, I'm still here, Sam.
Completely ignored you. Okay.
You still haven't answered the question. Who is the largest exporter?
I don't know if we are the largest exporter of military arms.
No, we're about third or fourth.
I do believe.
Considering income.
No. I'm
forgetting how
talking
much we
about
give away.
numbers, sir. Bob, I'm talking about numbers, sheer numbers.
Right.
Who is the largest?
The reason that we sell copies of the arms we develop for ourselves is so that we can afford them.
Now, hold
so that we can afford them.
Wait a second. What's the difference between an M15 and a copy of an M15?
Right.
The difference between the developmental cost of an M15, which is necessary for our defense, and a copy of an M15 is that it would cost us more to arm ourselves without selling those arms than if we...
Don't you think that the proud people of America are capable of paying for their own defense instead of shoving it off onto someone else?
We're capable of paying for our own defense, but Bob, we are not able to live in that world anymore. This isn't you're preaching isolationism again, Bob. This is where the liberals make a lot of mistakes. They believe that we can retreat back to the World War I war.
I didn't say anything about isolationism. I just said, can't we pay for our own rifles?
Can't we pay? We could.
Don Richards, speaking of isolationism, isolated over there in the wfLA news booth. Sam.
It's time for broadcasting now.
Yes. Hey, look, we don't ask you to work much in the last 2 hours in the show.
Thanks.
I think possibly they don't ask me to work too much. All I do is introduce Gary 2-3 times, a couple of commercials, and then I can go home.
Oh, Paul Harvey comes in 5:30.
I think I've got a card-carrying one for you. Clear water. Clear, you're on the air at 970 wfLA. I think this is a card.
Is this a communist?
I think so.
No, I'm not. But anyway, good afternoon, Sam, and good afternoon, Magnificent Lassiter.
Good afternoon, T.
As you well know, Sam, I basically like George Bush, but I tell you, I am still angry of what he did during the campaign. And, you were mentioning...
Don't you just wish you would have done that to the Chinese?
Absolutely, you see, but that's where the hypocrisy comes in with these right-wing neoconservatives, because they're only loyal when it suits their purpose, and that's the thing that I object to, you see. But Sam,
I'm taken aback by all of this. All of the liberals calling in wanting more inflammatory rhetoric, more, maybe we should throw a bomb down.
Wait a minute.
Sam, liberals have always been against cutting down innocent, unarmed people in the middle of the street.
If that's what it means to be a liberal, well, boy, I'll tell you, we should have a whole country full of liberals, because everyone should be outraged about what happened over China.
Everyone is, TJ. You don't think.
No one.
You don't think that the communist government
Straight out, the Republican administration was, so outraged they canceled a couple of trips.
Absolutely.
Postponed them, actually.
But Sam,
it's a very complex situation going on in China, and we are appealing to certain interest groups, I'm certain.
It is only as complex as you would like to make it, Sam, just as you made it very complex.
I would suppose that you would like to have us return to a state where we're always, disapproving of China.
No,
and
that's not what we have to do at all, but we certainly should have had a little bit of more strength in our outrage, and certainly from the White House, and I think also from the people of this country. It's interesting
There's a difference between being righteous and self-righteous.
This is not
There's a difference between being
righteous.
holy and holier than
Oh,
thou.
come on,
Maybe, Sam,
Sam.
the problem is that, what the hell, they were Chinese liberals that were shut
That's
down.
what it's all about.
Liberals.
You got it. That's exactly what it's all about.
In no way I did. Listen, everybody in this country is
kind of envious about the way they treat the liberals over there in China.
Yes, and it's by the conservatives, by the way.
What you are listening to is the official statement of George Bush, and pretending, because I know that you're a thinking person, you're pretending as though that's the only thing he's doing, and it's the only thing he's saying. You know he's talking to many people.
Sam, George works for me.
Yeah.
And when one of my employees continues to try to make excuses for and look the other way and tap dance around the deplorable actions of Deng Xiaoping, then I'm a little bit bent out of shape.
No, I'll tell you, I agree with that about making excuses. I heard a lot of people calling up and saying, well, this is just like Kent State. You heard that comparison made on the air. People said, well, we shot students too. And I was so upset when I heard that. People, the professional apologists for communist butchers saying excuses.
It was not the official policy of the United States government to shoot people down in
the National Guardsmen. And that's a tragedy also. And to minimize the great tragedy that occurred at Kent State by saying it's just like what happened in China is also, it belittles the great sacrifice that the people in China actually made. They stood toe-to-toe with the military with that first deadline. Remember they said, clear the square or we'll shoot. But the Army did not shoot. They passed another deadline, clear the square or we'll shoot. And the Army the general saying, we will not shoot.
Well, why are you telling us about this marvelous Army and kind of drifting away from the despicable leadership in China?
The despicable leadership in China found some despicable military leaders and probably promised them the world if they would come into China.
So why doesn't George Bush call the despicable leadership in China despicable?
He probably has on certain phone calls, but he is a world leader.
Well,
he probably has. Despicable? You would prefer a different word? Is that what we're doing? We're mincing words? I don't think that's true.
Well, Sam, I would like to have a little bit more, and I would hope that other people would like to have more than that. But, let's go back to some call, an early call, and I didn't have a chance to call earlier because I was out of the house. But anyway,
playing tennis, I would imagine.
No,
2
not
minutes.
today. In fact, I got rained out twice today.
Twice today.
2 minutes, hurry.
Pardon?
2 minutes, hurry.
Yes. The thing that I was going to ask you, isn't it a fact that during the election you were saying all sorts of horrendous things, smears against Dukakis and the Democratic Party, basically almost calling them communists?
I'm sure it's true, and I didn't even hear it.
Right. And the thing is that you did say that you did acknowledge the fact that you felt justified in all of this, and you even said that you were going to lie if that's what it took.
I said I was willing to lie. I declared war on Michael Dukakis.
Yes, you
I was
did.
willing to lie,
However,
but I was not. I didn't have
right.
to. The truth.
But I remember that time very clearly, and as I recall, Sam, you never ever said that during the election that you would be willing to lie.
No, I did
You
say
said
that.
it afterwards. After it
Well,
was
what do you
safe.
think a declaration of war means? That we're going to go out and going to play, tutti frutti? I said that I wanted to get Michael Dukakis off the stage completely. I don't want any more nominations of men like him in the Democratic Party because it's damaging to this country. The Democrats have got to change. We need a two-party system in this country.
In other words,
and the
the
Democratic Party
has to
ignores
become-
Democratic voters.
The Democratic Party has to become like you.
Yes.
No, the
exactly.
Democratic Party does not have to be.
We need a one-party system. Is that what you're saying, Sam?
No, we need a
today in the
two-party
news, I heard that they were already, the Republicans were trying to smear Foley.
Gotta
Now, there's
run.
a man who has absolutely nothing to hide, and the Republican Party is beginning to look for things to smear him. Now,
Gotta run.
She does this to me, too. She just keeps
Hey, shut up, too. Well, minutes after the hour of 5 o'clock. Welcome back, and just in case you're joining us live in studio with me is Mr. Toot himself, Sam McClelland.
That's
who, of
me.
course, has, weekend duty, 9 to
Weekends,
noon.
yes. Saturday and Sunday mornings, 9 a.m. to noon. Right. Right here on 970 wfLA.
Sam, you had, of course, as I said at the beginning of the show, you had been complaining, I'm told, by my spies, that you weren't getting enough communists calling you. And you
No
had to-
communist callers. Not enough, anyway.
And you had issued a challenge to the communists to call you on the weekends. And, of course, I started my program by issuing the same challenge. Do you feel as though you've had a sufficient number of communists call you up?
Once again, they're cowards. If they feel that their dialogue is superior, then challenge me. If they feel that their system is better, then challenge me. If they really feel that they're interested in free speech, then challenge me. But they don't call me because they're cowards. If they are real communists, they're cowards.
Well, probably a lot of the communists have been having a difficult time getting through because the board was full. However, after the last newscast, that is no longer the case. Talk about drop-off city. 990-9352 in Hillsborough. That's 990-WFLA. In the other place, 461-9352. 461-WFLA. All of you communists out there, would you also, take calls from Bolsheviks?
Certainly, Bob. Why
Or
not?
any left? Probably some left over in St. Petersburg
Yeah,
by the
that's right.
Bolsheviks. Surely in Sarasota. 990-9352 and 461-9352. Of course, there's the practical joke line for all of you who live in Pinellas County who would like to call up David Maseko's line personally and tell David, how much you appreciate Sam and his defending America, things of that nature. That number is 1-223-9797 for people who live in Pinellas County. 1-223-9797. Tampa, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hey, guys, I was downtown earlier today, and I really did see a couple of commies down there.
Oh, really?
Live commies.
Why don't they come over to the studio?
Sam, sit down.
You know
what?
Sit down, Sam. You
Come over to the studio. Come over to the studio. I'll take a swing and I'll fire the
I hope
first
they're
shot.
listening because these guys were live commies.
a second.
They're
Did you
cowards.
hear that,
They're
Al?
cowards. See, a real
He was just
a
like
coward.
all the other Republicans, blowing a lot of... Yeah, if they come up here, I'll take a swing on them. Yeah, I'll
Right.
show them. They come over here. I'll punch them in the
real
nose.
communist is a coward. They're afraid of people. That's why they have a system like they've got. They're afraid of people.
These guys were full breathing. But anyway, how do you guys feel about this harpooning of congressional and other officials in general?
I think people who have broken the law or people who have so severely bended any rules that were set up in place before they arrived should certainly be run out of town.
Okay, specifically, though, the actual harpooning, like the first shot to uncover, okay? Not necessarily the prosecution, because I agree with you, Bob, that prosecution needs to take place if something's seen. But the first shot, like, there's been a lot of first shots to uncover that a lot of things might go unnoticed. Not to say that's good or bad, but what do you feel about the actual harpoon?
Well, I think by the time that you have heard anything, in all probability, it's true.
You really feel that?
For the most part,
How about yourself, Sam?
First of all, I think it's marvelous that Congress was able to investigate itself and actually come out with a bad report on the Speaker of the House or force a Tony Coelho to consider dropping out. I think that this is going to be a good thing for the Democratic Party because it will create such a sudden vacuum of leadership that the people who get pulled up will not owe their posts in the traditional favoritism manner. and they'll be able to rule with wisdom. And I hope that they will, because they are the ruling party in the House.
In the long run, the Democratic Party is going to be better off for it. I agree with you now that it's come to fruition.
Yeah.
The actual cycle has taken place quite a bit.
But will the Congress be better for it? Because I don't think there was any doubt in my mind that Jim Wright did some things that I would feel a hell of a lot more comfortable had he not done. But I have to wonder whether or not the indiscretions were so horrendous as to warrant what is obviously, again, going to become a this for that type of battle that will not serve the Congress nor the United States very well.
That brings me to my next point, Bob, and I'm glad you brought it up. In your opinion, and this is directed to both of you, who do you think is going to be, well, maybe not who, but what do you think is going to be the next shot? Who's going to throw the next punch? Do you think it's a this for that thing?
Well, if my name was Newt Gingrich, I would be spending most of my time in the days ahead in the monastery.
Well, you know, Bob, I find that interesting. Because...
Oh, wait a second. Sam's making terrible faces over here.
I wanted to hear Sam's point on that.
TV, right. I
didn't suggest, Sam, that the man is bad. I suggested that he doesn't do anything that might even come close to being...
Newt Gingrich is used to being in the doghouse. He is a Republican, which makes him a doghouse Republican in the U.S. House.
He's not a Republican.
Yeah, he is.
Most Republicans would severely object to being grouped together.
And a great
with
student
Newt
of history.
Gingrich.
A teacher of history, in fact. Newt Gingrich is a marvelous person who has shown how you can use C-SPAN, for example.
No wonder you don't have any problems with Deng Xiaoping.
I have a lot of problems with Deng Xiaoping. Deng Xiaoping is a communist. He is a slave master.
Well, details besides that. I mean, if you like, Newt, you'd probably love Deng.
No. Now, here's again. The comparison...
As a matter of fact, I think
despicable.
I think the two first names are
Deng Xiaoping and Newt Gingrich the same thing?
I think the two first names are interchangeable.
It's a man who believes in free
Deng Xiaoping, Deng Gingrich.
Sam, do you think that Gingrich is a prime suspect for the next shot?
No.
You don't?
I think that they will try to hand him his head. I mean, they will try to do something because he is the minority whip.
So you think that the Democrats are going to try to retaliate to the other side of the
He's in a leadership position. Okay. He isn't. But I'll tell you something else you might notice in Congress. When George Bush made his State of the Union address, he said this micromanagement of foreign policy must end. I think you've noticed it's over. George Bush is the President of the United States of America.
What do you mean? What's he tried to do? What are you talking about, micromanagement?
Micromanagement of foreign policy has ended. All of the little 435 secretaries of state...
Well, that's what the Founding Fathers had in mind.
No. That's not what they had in mind.
Sam, I beg your pardon.
That's not what they had in
mind. You should know better than that.
I'm a great student of history, but I'm a great student of current history. Current U.S. history is not a reflection of what the Founding Fathers wanted.
Well, you see,
what
the Founding Fathers
didn't even want us to be involved in foreign
What the Founding Fathers had in mind was the President proposing foreign policy, but as a series, or as part of a series of checks and balances, it was up to the Congress and the Senate as to whether or not to fund.
Hey, I know that Flyboy is going to be coming in here pretty soon.
Yeah.
And I don't mind, but I did want to get...
The Founding Fathers would have shuddered at the number of international treaties and alliances that we have. The Founding Fathers did not envision a world in which we would be the world leader.
Are we
really
talking ancient history again, Sam?
It's inapplicable to talk about Founding Fathers and United States foreign policy in the 21st century.
I find it interesting that both of you think that the next shot might be a Democrat against Republican.
Wait a second. I thought you were the one that brought it up.
The 21st century. Yeah, I brought it up because the founding, there was a difference between, I am an 18th century kind of a guy. It's true.
But the next shot was clearly from the Republican side in this memo that they tried to spread and discredit fully before the vote was cast.
And the astonishing thing is...
A 4-page memo. The next shot was Republican. Now, that's rude.
The astonishing thing is that this whole thing could have been avoided had the Republicans, had the George Bush administration not been so stupid as to nominate a short, drinking, womanizing so-and-so who disavows his marriage vow.
John Tower, I mean, really.
Oh, just a little bit later this time.
Well, if it isn't our very own Flyboy in the sky.
If our founding fathers had known how many times I would have to be late for traffic, if our founding fathers had only known that.
All us MCs stick together. McClelland, we are.
That's right.
We're the same blood.
That's right.
86 proof.
We're blood brothers.
You better believe that.
Well, you think I don't imagine anybody named Lassiter would fit into that category, do you?
The name, sir, is really Wadowski, and don't you forget
Well, that's even farther away.
You still have perhaps family in the old country?
Yes. We have some traffic coming up here.
That's right.
It's true.
As soon as Bob checks his sponsor card again, probably rapidly fumbling through his little card cabinet.
970 wfLA.
Hi.
I got you another commie.
No, this isn't a commie.
Nastrovia.
This is a horribly misguided woman.
Okay, so a member of,
I'm misguided. I'm misguided. Saving Sam, we're going to have to call you Mendacious Sam, standing up and
another
admitting
Tennessee
that
Williams,
you will lie
another Tennessee
to
Williams
achieve
fan.
any end.
Yeah, nobody uses that word anymore, really. Tennessee Williams died long ago. Nobody uses mendacious anymore unless they're auditioning for a cat in a haunted roof.
Yeah, now the new word, schmooked.
I like Mendacious. Mendacious Sam.
Yes.
Full of mendacity.
Well, that's fine.
It has a nice sound.
Except nobody knows what you're talking about unless it's a Tennessee Williams
Well,
fan.
they'll know now. It's a lie.
Okay, Big Daddy is listening.
Okay, Big Daddy. I know this proclivity you have for blaming what you label.
Another Latin derivative. What is this? I took 3 years of Latin. You know?
Well, what's the matter? So I went to Catholic school.
So what? You took 3 years of Latin, you take J. Corps' money. What's the difference?
I've heard you say some really far-out, wild things, some really nutcase right-wing type things.
Well, good. That validates that I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
If it seems nutcase to you, I'm on the right path. That's right.
Let's speak again.
That's right.
But this one really topped everything I've ever heard. When you said that the liberal media establishment was responsible for the SNL crisis, that there was no crisis in the SNLs. When everybody in the Republican Party, everybody, all the Democrats, everybody was saying, oh my God, what are we going to do? It's a crisis.
Missiles in Cuba is a crisis.
You know what I don't understand?
A few bankers having trouble doing their business is not a crisis.
You know, Sam, what I don't understand is if the liberal media establishment and the liberals and and so forth and so on, if these people are strong enough to bring down the savings and loan industry, if these people are strong enough to bring down fine people like Tower and North and so forth and so on, if these people are strong enough to spread communism worldwide, why in the hell is the liberal media strong enough to throw out some of these right-wing lunatic congressmen that we have in Florida?
Because the American people are free to vote for who they want, and they're able to choose.
The American people are believing
But
your
the liberal
lies.
media said there is no SNL crisis. There is no crisis.
The American people are also strong enough to turn off their television sets. They're also strong enough to, not buy their newspapers and drive the liberal media establishment that's doing all of this harm, I should suspect, out of business.
The liberal media establishment is perfectly adept at doing creative gas throwing. They find a little spark.
If there's any gas coming from one side of the aisle or the other, I think we all know which side that really
gas throwing. You find a little spark, you pour a can of gas on it, you get yourself a little flame. And now, if there's nothing really there, it burns it. And that's what the liberal media establishment did with the SNL crisis. There is no crisis in the SNL.
My main man on the other side of the glass has just typed something up here on the screen talking about, management of the news and things of that nature. Sam, could you tell us about the Panamanian crises that the White House announced 4 weeks ago?
That's not a crisis.
Wait a second, you red-bellied old whatever you may be on the other end of the phone. The president said it was a crisis.
The president said the SNL loan mess was a crisis. Now you're saying that George Bush was lying to us? Was George Bush lying?
Hey, wait a minute. Do I look like Marlon Fitzwater? Don't answer that. Do I sound like Marlon Fitzwater?
Well, I don't want to say that the president has been known to lie or to cheat or to misrepresent. However, I have it on some very good inside information that last Saturday up at Kennebunkport, out back in the horseshoe pit, George Bush, when he went over to measure his horseshoes, pointed up to the sky and said, "Look, incoming commie missiles!" And what had been a horseshoe that was at least 6 inches away from the spike was suddenly a leaner. 970 tax credits aren't going to help them.
That's right. I think we should do tax credits. Employers are making a lot of money off of employee plans. In fact, that you talk about what we should be paid. Employers have been trading off health benefits for real wages for a long time. They say, hey, I know I'm paying you half of what you're worth, but hey, I have a health plan. right?
Right, that pays you 80% of what you get sick for.
Right, and then you get fired, and you don't have a health plan at all. You got to start over with a new ball game with a new employer. And I think the system we have now is corrupt.
Lake, you're on the air at 970 wfLA.
Yeah, I'd like to address this question to your guest, if I may.
I don't have a guest. Sam McClelland's in the studio with me
Well,
today.
I am a talk show guest. That's my moniker. I'm not a host. I'm a guest. I mean, where are we right now? I mean, are we in your car or where?
I am at home.
You're at home? Are we in your living room or your dining room?
You got a minute now.
I am in my living room.
In your living room?
Okay, you wanted a communist?
You're the host, and are you a communist?
No, actually, I'm an anarchist college student. How will that do?
An anarchist college student. Well, I don't know how that will do. Let's find out. What do you got to say?
Isn't the problem with the world, in terms of the whole geopolitical structure, isn't the problem with the world, whether it be a communist nation with a communist economy, a capitalist free enterprise nation, isn't the problem, like we see in China, the problem is conservative old men who stand in the way of progress?
No, the problem is the entire history of the world, since you are a college student, is a struggle of totalitarianism versus freedom, okay? And I don't care what you call it. You can call it King Henry, and you can call it, Deng Xiaoping. It's totalitarianism versus freedom. Would you dispute that?
I would say that totalitarianism is synonymous with conservatism.
Totalitarianism is synonymous with conservatism.
Yes.
And what is anarchism synonymous with?
Anarchism is synonymous with freedom.
Well, you're free to go. Really?
And I guess, therefore, John Richards is free to come, standing by in the wfLA news booth. You finally given them up?
No, I don't smoke cigarettes, but I do smoke cigars. But I don't...
Well, I don't really need one.
No, I don't.
So why don't you just put the damn thing away once and for all?
Because I
why not
enjoy
put
cigar
back?
smoke.
Oh, Sam, you enjoy cigar smoke. You burn your ties, you smell, you're doing your health. Do you have children, Sam?
Yes, I have a son.
You have children and you smoke cigars?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. I have vices, Bob. I admit to it. I'm not perfect.
Would you like to quit?
Cigar smoking?
Yeah.
No.
Not yet, huh?
Not yet, no.
You know the day's going to come. Man strong enough to quit cigarettes is surely strong enough to quit cigars.
Well, I enjoy, but I enjoy the flavor. I enjoy the act of smoking. And I know what you're talking about.
Well, Sam, ladies and gentlemen, who views also is a little strange with his views on smoking, and we'll just let Sam sit up and work for you. Tampa, you're on the air at 970 wfLA.
Lassiter?
Yeah.
I listened to you all afternoon and Sam.
Damn good show, isn't it?
And I finally figured out how come the communists didn't call you.
Oh, really? What's that?
You forgot to tell them what the communists are.
Communists would know what they are.
Now, once again, they've proven themselves to be the cowards that they are. You see, they don't call. They never
Or
call.
there's another possibility, Sam, that maybe, it just hasn't struck you, and that is that there aren't any.
Well, that's a possibility. But if you were to describe them in detail, which you can do so well, I'm sure they would crop up.
Well, I had one guy say he would come to the studio, and I offered to poke him out. I said, I'll swing the first punch just to prove
knowing full
how
well
aggressive the right-winger can be.
God, it's amazing with an attitude like that, they didn't put you in charge of, Central American policy and, cleaning up Nicaragua. Yeah, you come over here, I'll punch you in the nose.
Well, Nicaragua is in our front yard. It's not our backyard. I get this,
Sam McClelland, ladies and gentlemen, to be heard again live and in person next Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. I, on the other hand, shall return tomorrow at 3.
God bless you, Bob.